So I'm really excited, Galina, to introduce you and welcome. Thank you very much for this hospitality, and I will try to make my PowerPoint presentation now. So it's really a great pleasure for me that I'm able today on the World YWCA Day to dedicated to the issue Women Create a Safe World to deliver you a topic on human trafficking. But I come from Belarus, YWCA, and I think it's better for you to know a little bit more about Belarus first. Where is it and how it is to live there? Republic of Belarus is located in the eastern part of Europe, and it borders on Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Russia, and Ukraine. The capital of Belarus is Minsk. I'm from Minsk. The territory of Belarus is around 200,000 square kilometers, and Belarus is bigger, for instance, than territory of Belgium, Portugal, Netherlands, Greece, Austria, and it's like about Great Britain or Romania. The population of Belarus is about 10 million people, where 2 million people lives in the capital. And our population is, for example, twice bigger as Finland's or Denmark's. Some word about economic context. The economy of Belarus is state-controlled. The main industries are metal cutting machine tools, tractors, trucks, chemical industry, fertilizers, textiles. The agricultural sector also provides us products such as grain, potatoes, vegetables, sugar beets, flax, beef and milk. And the main trade partners to Belarus are Russian Federation, of course, Poland, Germany, and Ukraine. Belarus was declared republic in 1991, and the same year, together with Ukraine and Russian Federation, we settled down, we founded Commonwealth of Independent States, probably you've heard. I have several slides about Belarus just to show you my country. As to the nature and to the weather, for example, it's very alike to Canadian, I would say. It's rather cold. It has, there are a lot of rivers and lakes in Belarus. It's very picturesque. And we have a rather plain country with a lot of trees and woods as well. It's also about our woods. It's the biggest Belarusian lowland called Polessia. And Polessia is famous for its swamps. So like that. So it's about handicrafts. We made it of clay, straw, wood, and flax, and they were prominent for Belarusian culture. And our soul is reflected in our language, songs, dances, and different national dresses as well. So as to speak about YWCA in Belarus, we were registered as a Minister of Justice in 1996 and were affiliated with the World YWCA movement as a full member in 1999. Our aims are to advocate for women's rights and freedoms, assist in women's personal potential development, and cultural and moral revival of Belarusian society. As to the structure, we have around 80 active members throughout Belarus. We are a Republican organization, so we have local branches in 8 towns, and we have around 60 volunteers. All these members are implementing different social programs. The first is contribution to young women's leadership development, then it's elimination of all forms of discrimination, against women included gender-based violence, combating domestic violence, breast cancer prevention, and combating human trafficking within La Strada Belarus program. And today I'm pleased to share with you some highlights and concrete points which resulted from our anti-trafficking today's work, experience of La Strada Belarus program, and about our impact in this regard to creation of a safe world without this severe form of violence, trafficking. Counter-trafficking in Belarus has become increasingly prominent for over the past years. Belarus is considered to be a country of origin and in some cases transit country for victims of trafficking. Persons from Belarus are trafficked nearly to 30 different countries. The most common destinations are Western Europe, Middle East, and the Russian Federation. It is really difficult to assess the full scale of trafficking in persons because of the nature of the crime, and also because many victims are afraid to report to police about the facts of exploitation. For example, out of more than 3,500 trafficked persons identified by law enforcement chart, so to say, between 2001 and 2008, less than 20% approached the police voluntarily. At the same time, I would say that at the moment we have rather good legislation on anti-trafficking. There are a range of legislative acts such as Criminal Code, National Action Plan, some presidential decrees, and they compose the basis for combating trafficking. Also, we have signed and ratified the UN Palermo Protocol. At the same time, based on our own observations, we can state that anti-trafficking legislation in Belarus has more law enforcement character and does defend rather state interests than interests of individuals. And the range of measures that were undertaken by state to regulate migration stay for themselves. That for our state as a country of origin, it is easier to sometimes to close the borders. For example, small picture. It's about limitation to freedom to move. According to the new counter-trafficking legislation, every Belarusian student has to obtain special authorization from the Ministry of Education if he or she wants to participate in any international program or to study abroad. And this procedure is rather complicated. And do you think these measures are about prevention trafficking or about prevention migration and closing the borders? Current situation in Belarus remains rather difficult, which is a strong pushing factor to migrate and severe interfering factor to successful reintegration and social inclusion afterwards. Poor job opportunities, gender inequality, domestic violence so habitual, particularly for women. It's not the full list of problems and thus pushing factors for persons to search for better life abroad. Shortly about root causes, it was estimated by International Strada Association that from 30 to 80% of survivors of trafficking had a press story of domestic violence. Being a co-founder of International La Strada Association, you can see the map, it's all our countries, included in La Strada International. We have a program activity within YWCA that is implementing its three basic directions. The first is advocacy and lobby, prevention and education, and social assistance to the survivors of trafficking. As to advocacy and lobby, it is directed on raising awareness among professional state officials, international community, and society in a whole, and cooperation with mass media plays an utmost role for overcoming stereotypes about the problem of trafficking as the problem of prostitution only.